I saw things breaking down like communication and trust and belonging. That's really where I started to shift from solving problems that were technical to thinking more about how I led and how to build support for other people to lead better as well.
And like Jill said, acknowledging it, building that awareness around it and understanding how it impacts your leadership and how that shows up in your day-to-day. That's what coaching is all about to help you get to if your goal is to be a better leader.
You're listening to Food Tech Talk, Supply Chain Insights from Farm to Fork, a podcast discussing the latest trends and technologies in the food and supplements industries, brought to you by Trustwell, featuring conversations with regulatory experts, quality and safety champions, and thought leaders across the industry. If you're loving the conversation, don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned to the end of the episode where you'll hear our guests tell us their key food industry predictions. Let's jump right in.
Hi, welcome to the podcast. This is Katy Jones, CEO of Trustwell. On today's episode of Food Tech Talk, Supply Chain Insights from Farm to Fork, we're thrilled to welcome back to the pod Jill Stuber and Tia Glave, co-founders of Catalyst Food Leaders, and two of the most influential voices in elevating leadership across the food industry. Welcome, Jill and Tia.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Katy, for having us. We're so excited to be here today.
Yes, we are.
Well, I am so excited to have you back on the podcast. Jill, you've spent over 2 decades driving food safety, quality, and culture transformation, helping leaders show up with authenticity and purpose. Tia, you also seasoned food safety and regulatory expert whose career spans large CPG, retail, startups, and culinary brands. You both bring deep operational insight and a passion for developing resilient, empowered teams. You also are a significant part of the Women's Entrepreneurship Day Summit. Very cool, where women and allies come together to learn, connect, and rise. Today, we're going to talk about why well-being still takes a backseat, unfortunately, in the food industry. How culture shaping is far more practical than people think, and why human skills matter more than ever, even in an AI-driven world. We'll also talk about how leaders at every level can create meaningful, lasting change. So I'd love to get right into it. Let's start. This is one of my favorite questions to ask people, and I always love the background. And I found that the food industry is so special. But let's start with your origin story in the food industry. So, what drew you to this field, and did you always know that this was where you'd land? So, let's start with Tia.
So, to answer your question, no, I did not think that I would land in food. So my background is chemical engineering. I actually have a degree in chemical engineering and biomolecular engineering. And so my background was actually in the oil and gas industry and the chemical refinery industry when I was in school. So that's the type of internships that I did, the type of co-ops that I did. And I assumed after school, that's the type of work I would be doing. But I wasn't passionate about it. I wasn't passionate about the industry. I really didn't see how I wanted to grow because, again, I wasn't passionate about the industry. And, I didn't feel this deep sense of care around the work that I did. And so that pushed me to look out and to determine, okay, where can I use this engineering degree? I thought about going to medical school, but wasn't quite sure what type of doctor. So I started looking, okay, what type of role can I get as a chemical engineer? And so I went to the annual conference of the National Society of Black Engineers. It's a huge conference that happens every year with a lot of companies that come and recruit. And food companies were there. I had never even thought about food companies. I just think back to my student self, and I had no idea. I did zero real research on where my degree could be used other than what was presented to me in school. But ultimately, I interviewed with some food companies and hired in with General Mills and chose food safety and quality because it sounded different than other manufacturing that I knew. And I wanted something different, and it clicked. I love knowing about brands and how they're made. I love being almost like the cheerleader for the brand because I know it's safe. I know we care about quality because I'm ultimately responsible for it. And that's just why I stuck with food. And then the more that I, advance in my career, this whole idea around people development and helping people step into their full selves and to the best of their ability sort of led me down the path that eventually, right, I met Jill and we created Catalyst. But this whole passion around people, it's always been there, but being able to help impact the industry from a people standpoint and help really leaders step into their best versions of themselves so that we can see the business results that we want to see the achievements that we're trying to reach. That just falls right into my passion around people. And I love the work that I do.
If you're enjoying this episode, be sure to check out the Reconnect On-Demand Library. Every October, Trustwell brings together food industry professionals, partners, and customers for Reconnect, our annual event focused on sharing best practices, exploring emerging technology, and building stronger supply chains. Now, the full library of sessions is available on demand. From expert panels to product deep dives and industry success stories, there's something for everyone working to improve food safety, transparency, and efficiency. Head to trustwell.com/reconnect to gain access to all of this year's sessions. Now, back to the show.
I always say I kind of was born into the food industry because I grew up on a dairy farm in Wisconsin. And when I look back, I think, oh gosh, I really like that combination of like science and systems and purpose. But if I'm honest, I never thought I'd be here doing leadership and culture work. I thought I was really signing up just to be kind of the technical subject matter expert and solve those type of problems. I laugh because I look back and I was even one of those people who used to say, my job would be so easy if it wasn't for all the people. Funny, here I am. And I think really that came because over time, I saw that the root of most of the problems that we encounter, they're not technical in nature. It's about people and how we're including people or not. And, this old mindset of being all business and we leave personal at the door really, kind of rubbed me a little bit wrong because like Tia said, it's our whole self that shows up. And so those parts where I saw things breaking down, like communication and trust and belonging, that's really where I started to shift from solving problems that were technical to thinking more about how I led and how to build support for other people to lead better as well.
Everyone's job being easier. If it weren't for the people, I think that probably crosses industries, but it is so critical, especially in food safety and compliance where the stakes are so high. And I think that, we all feel that day in and day out. And that's what's incredibly, I have found unique about the food industry is that often hearing customers say, food safety is not competitive. They'll share openly for the good of the whole, right? And for the good of the industry. But with that comes a significant amount of risk and pressure. And so a lot of food safety and compliance roles being very high pressure. How do you work with teams and, individuals in your practice to help them navigate that and help them manage the emotional and mental load of the responsibility in food safety?
Yeah. I think that's a really good question, but I think it all starts with, you have to first acknowledge it. Like we talk about it being heavy and that helps us really put context to this work. But what's really helped me in this space with navigating the emotional and mental load and what we really instill in our programs is building self-awareness, learning to pause, learning to observe. And that's where the tools we use like coaching, reflection, and, for me, journaling personally helps me really connect to my center, my values, whatever it is that you want to call it. Because whether it's me or whether it's other people, like leadership starts when you connect to what matters most. And even in a business, it's how do we connect people to purpose? How do we connect to their purpose? And that really comes from developing people and building trust and having this community of people where they feel empowered. And that's how we lighten the load when we do have these high pressure jobs.
And one thing I just want to highlight what Jill mentioned with the way that we tackle culture in leadership is the coaching aspect. And one big thing about coaching, if you are a coach, like a true coach, not the way we sort of use it in industry, but if you've been trained in coaching, a piece of that is that you recognize that each person is a full, whole human being. And a piece of that means that we have these stressors, we have this load from work, but also home life and whatever else we have going on. And that is heavy. And like Jill said, acknowledging it, building that awareness around it and understanding how it impacts your leadership and how that shows up in your day to day. That's what coaching is all about to help you get to if your goal is to be a better leader. And our programs are specifically structured for leaders in the industry to do that work.
Well, I know you both do a lot of work in the industry to help advocate and advance women in the field. I'm curious if you see whether there are unique strengths that women bring to leadership, specifically in food and regulatory roles related to some of these themes that we've been discussing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of research around how men and women lead differently. And I want to say that in the sense of, as a society, right, we raise girls differently than we raise boys. And if you look globally across the world, right, some of those things shift, right, because there's different cultures. But that impacts how we interact with each other when we become adults, right? And so as women, really when you take a look at how most women in the world are raised, it is around this nurturing, mothering, right? Taking care of others. And that shows up in the workplace, right? Taking care of our team. You hear the term mama bear, right? That we use those terms. We've heard those terms even within industry. And that just comes from that piece that women that we just get as a part of society to nurture other people. And so when we talk about taking care of others and ensuring that you understand as a leader that people have things going on and that impacts the way that they show up each and every day. Women, because we have been in society this way, it's easier sometimes for us to switch to, I need to nurture this person. Now, it doesn't mean that men can't do it. Men are actually great at nurturing, especially when they have the permission to do so and they have the tools to do so. So they're great at it. They do very well at it. Women just have been socialized to bring those qualities up front and to strengthen those qualities over their adolescence years so that it shows up in adulthood and therefore it shows up in their leadership more often.
Yeah, no, I was kind of along the same lines. Like, I think women are these natural system thinkers. I think there's a reason why we say there's Mother Earth. I think it's being connected to this interconnectedness that we all have. And because we have more permission, or perhaps maybe more, we're more likely to lean into intuition and compassion, that I think we have been better equipped to hold both people and process with care. So when I think about where women can play, especially when we think about leadership, they think about, yes, we need results, but yes, we need people to come with us.
Mm-hmm. One other thing to add is that women, we have stronger community. It's just the way that we have been set up, again, from society. And so the idea of being in a community, living in a community, right, learning about your community and doing what's best for the community, it's already sort of set in us, again, through adolescence to adulthood. So just even that sense of community and how communities should be right together in order for everyone to benefit, I think is uniquely woman for the most part.
Now, shifting topics a little bit, I think that, so much of building successful leaders and and advancing and mentoring and all of these things that are so critical is about culture and shaping a culture of leadership. And Jill, you've worked extensively on shaping leadership culture in the food industry. How do you approach culture change in a way that is practical and impactful? It is such an amorphous, abstract concept, right? Culture, but so many things go into it. How do you, as your coaching organizations, approach that so that, changes have that impact and you can actually create a different, better culture?
Yeah. I think that's one of the biggest questions we get more recently, because food safety culture especially has been so much, kind of getting news space. It's buzzwords. And people are like, yep, we've done those things, but we haven't seen a shift. And really, when Tia and I talk about kind of where we're at, we really focus on culture can't change and won't change until leadership does. And what we mean by that really is that too often we see companies that are trying to shift culture with, systems, slogans, an assessment, a training, but culture and people aren't checklists. And so treating human behavior like this technical issue and approaching it the same way we've done before, like we're not able to make those shifts. And so even as companies think about culture, we often see companies that aren't even connecting that, like the problems we have, the firefighting we have, the repeat failures, like that's all culture. And so where Catalyst comes in is, we've really built Catalyst for food. Our methods are backed by science, and we're truly focused on the inner work for people. So we do know any solution we have has to be practical and boots on the ground, and it needs to be things that people can do today, but also grounded in reality and this bigger sense of where we're going. But with that, I also want to say it has to be bold enough to invite people to go further than we are today. And I think we do that really well because of this coaching philosophy that we bring in. And even the other day, we had a new client who said, I know I've got a lot of leadership options and we've used a lot of people before and they all have similar goals, but only Catalyst understands food. We walk the talk, and that's why we get results, because we're able to be in this space and hold space knowing that this world of food is imperfectly perfect.
Mm-hmm. Because we've done it, right? Like we've been in these different spaces. We've done it well. We've done it not so well, right? And so we take those learnings to be able to help build a practical solution for our clients.
Yeah. So Tia, you have experience across General Mills, Milk Bar, and now Catalyst. What personal experiences shaped the way you coach leaders in food safety and quality?
Mm-hmm. So those are ones that, I was employed with directly, but I've also consulted with so many companies and different products. And the one thing that I sort of bring into it, especially when you talk about like practical solutions, is that there are many solutions out there, right? Like just connecting with the organizations that I've worked with, but then also all the many experts that we're surrounded by. Like there are many solutions out there. The key is to find the one that will work within your organization and within your culture, because that might be different. And many times we have conversations with clients on like, well, I've done this in my past and I've done this in my past, and really take a look at, well, why did that work well at your organization? Where were they from a culture standpoint? And how do we bring in elements of that here, knowing the current state of your culture and where you want to go? That's one thing that I bring, that I try to bring to the conversations, because there are a lot of great solutions. We just need to find one, and there might be multiple ones, but we need to decide on the one that will work best for your culture, where it is today, keeping in mind how you want to shift your culture going into the future.
One of the things that's top of mind at Trustwell, we're 100% remote. And so we are constantly looking for opportunities for connection and checking in on our team members, because we're not seeing each other in person, every day. And it's something that we have to be very intentional about. And I think that it certainly can seem and feel that well-being and wellness has really taken a back seat in some organizations. And how can leaders change that? What are some tips that it's from everything going on in the world right now, but also pressure that companies, especially I think food companies, are feeling now with the changing economic environment. It's very easy to slip into really just caring about the bottom lines, and not putting employee and team member well-being first. And how do you think leaders can work to adjust that, and make sure that they're focused on, both things, people, and profits?
I say make it visible. Make your value of being people first, right? That's in a lot of company values. People first, people driven, people oriented, right? Like that's in a lot of organizations' values and mission. And what they say is their North Star. That should be very visible for each leader. And they should know how their work connects to being people first. What are things that they're doing that ensure that they are keeping their people first, whether they directly report into you or not. You should be doing actions around people first, right? What decisions have you made this week to ensure that your people are okay, that their well-being is being put first? What tough business decisions have you had to make in order to put people first? I think about times where there's huge snowstorms and we have to shut down the facility because people can't make it in. We could have decided to keep running and say, hey, like, be here. If not, you're going to get corrective action. And right, that's a possibility. But to be able to say, no, we're going to close down the facility because people cannot make it in and we don't want them to have a safety issue coming into the facility. Capture that, right? That's a really great example of how you're putting people first. And it doesn't have to be that dramatic, right? Like that's a big decision. But there's small decisions on, hey, I have something going on. I need to take a quick phone call and I need to step out. Did you show that support, or did you say, yeah, but make sure you're back on time? Or do you say, hey, take care of what you need? Be, like you said, Katy, like being intentional about those things, putting it front of mind. And Joe, I love him in that you brought up journaling. Write it down. Like, this is how I put my people first. This is where I failed this week. And this is who I need to go revisit. This is how I need to do better next time I have this conversation. So that's one tip I would say, is to put it front of mind, and know who you are, and try to live up to that every day.
Yeah. And just to add to that, I can't say enough the intentional part. I think too often leaders have a really big workload, just like everyone else, but that workload often misses that intentional connecting with people. And so while we're in meetings or in passing, we say, well, yep, I talked to them. I asked how they were. If we're really focused on well-being, we need to go a step further than that and have the EQ to understand like when we really need to go further than that. Yeah, I'm not sure who had the quote, the one where it's something like, if you want people to take care of business, you need to take care of them first. Yeah, that is really where we need to sit as leaders when we think about some of the challenges we see with engagement being low, with retention being tough, with attracting the right people. When it doesn't feel like you take someone's well-being into account or make it a priority, then why would they want to stay? And I think as leaders, it's our duty to make systems where well-being is a priority, so that when we really stand behind those values of we're going to take care of people because they take care of business, that we build systems around it, not just say, oh gosh, I'm going to do it just once today, or I put fruit out in the break room, so that's enough well-being. I had a yoga class for someone, like that's cool, like keep doing that. But it's building the system around people and supporting that well-being that really sets the stage for, essentially putting our money where our mouth is.
Let's shift topics a little bit and talk about, I don't know, it's the word of the century perhaps, but AI. And, in a world increasingly influenced by AI and really, a way that many companies are looking at a replacement for people, and a replacement for connection. why do you believe that human skills, particularly emotional intelligence and self-awareness, are more critical than ever? I see a huge opportunity for AI, but obviously a huge risk when it goes too far. So, where do you see the human element working into, the inclusion of AI and technology?
Yeah, I'm a fan of AI. I use it on a daily basis because it can process, it can help me optimize, but it doesn't help me connect. I don't use ChatGPT or, the other platforms and think, wow, I feel so seen. That doesn't happen. And so I think even as we think about ourselves as an industry going forward, these critical human skills are what are going to make leaders even more valuable. And, it even goes so far to say like EQ is not, no, it's no longer optional. Like it's a differentiator. And in this space where we have had, we've had so many layoffs, we've had a whole lot of things going on with people. And we don't just have bodies to fill roles anymore. Like we're not in that space where we have more people than we have roles. Having human skills are more important than ever now. And having that connection, because people aren't going to get that from AI, to know that they feel valued and that they feel like they have purpose. So, I know I'm really biased here, but that is important. And to back that up, I know that there are studies, and I wish I had it in front of me, but another podcast I'd listened to talked about, AI doesn't set off those same emotional, chemical reactions within our body to help us even feel that connection. And so while we may read the words and go like, oh gosh, I sense I sense something, like our body doesn't physically respond to even that type of connection. So it is definitely a gap, even if we think we might be getting it.
Mm-hmm. And Jill, even as you say that, I think a big piece of that is that people know that it's AI talking to them. So even as a leader, if I'm going to try to use AI and I send it to someone, I don't want right? Like, are they going to think, wow, is this my manager? Is my leader saying this? Or is this AI saying it? So again, like, because our minds don't connect, or our brains really are not connecting the same way as if your leader said this and they know it came from their leader. As human beings, we're automatically going to say, well, that's AI. So does my leader really truly feel that way? And then there's some trust things. And then if you stay within the AI space, which I'm not an expert at all, but there are some things that's coming up that AI really can't do all the great things that we've been talking about with AI. We have a long way to go. But what is happening is that even though we don't have necessarily the tools that AI has promised us for many years, some of those negative impacts on culture, like, is this my manager talking to me or is this someone else? Is a machine evaluating me, or is it actually my leaders? Some of that negative impact to culture is already happening, even though we don't really have great tools that can step in, like Jill said, to even be able to give you information, to be able to assess, to be able to do some of the things that we need leaders to do. And it definitely cannot connect to people. I think it's more important now more than ever because we have so many stressors right now. We have, disengagements at a low, retentions at a low. Even finding people, like Jill said, finding people to come into industry is a struggle. And so we need to connect with people in order to get them in and to retain them.
Yeah, I'm even going to add to that because we got to talk to a hiring manager just the other day. And when we asked them what was the most important thing that this new person would bring to this role, they said someone who needs to be present, build trust, and communicate. I mean, those were all human skills, critical skills, not technical skills for a very technical field in food safety and quality.
So true. It's, we've seen it as, driving, efficiency, assistance, but there's still that critical human judgment element that you have to have, in addition to understanding the right conditions, but especially when it comes to people and leadership, making sure that there's that high EQ and self-awareness. So it'll be interesting to see how it continues to evolve. We'll wrap up here with a couple of closing questions. What is your food industry prediction for 2026, for the next 12 months? We'll start with Jill.
Oh, what will my prediction be for the next 12 months? Well, gosh, I think we talked about, we're still going to see more AI and more automation and more pressure. But, I think that only means, like we just talked about, like this need for human-centered leadership is only going to grow. And I think we're going to see that even more because there's going to be more pressure that's coming from trade instability and tariffs and layoffs and just the economy in general. That things I think are going to get harder before it gets easier. And even though the food industry is very resilient, we will figure it out. I think the question is at what cost? And so I think the more we think about how we take care of people, the easier we'll get through this next portion in the next 12 months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with Jill. This leadership is going to continue to bubble to the top. I mean, organizations are already talking about culture, which is amazing. Making the connection between then I need to make sure that I'm investing in my leaders and giving them the tools to navigate this period of time is going to be even more critical. When things settle down, if they ever do settle down, right? Because there's really no settle down period. But just like we talk about coming out of COVID, there's some organizations that's like, oh, COVID hit us hard and we're rebuilding. There's some organizations like we were prepared and we did not see much disruption through COVID. We're going to hear the same type of things happening after this period of time to say, how well did your organization make it through this period of time? And how are they equipped for the next period that will be right on its heels? Food touches everyone in every industry, every single person in the world, right? It's the reason why we feel all of these shifts. Organizations that are proactive, they ensure that their people have the right tools to succeed. They are the ones that said, yes, we were prepared for it. We learned a lot. We're shifting some things, but we were prepared. We did not see the type of shifts in business the way that or the organizations did because we invested in our people.
Can't think of a better place to end than that. It's shifting. I think especially in the food industry where we're seeing maybe some, at least I'm seeing this, an increase in, tenured individuals and roles retiring, right? So it's providing a lot of opportunity for advancement, and there really just is a whole lot more optionality for people when it comes to, where they work and what they choose to do with their time. And I think that is a factor, I think, that's opening up the importance of making sure that you're not just seeing people as a means to an end, but as a real asset to the organization. So, Jill and Tia, thank you so much again for the insights and the wisdom and your perspective on leadership in the food industry. Really enjoyed having you on the podcast, and let's make sure that we go for a third interview coming up and later in the year, and have you back on the podcast as well. Would love to continue the conversation.
Thank you so much for having us. We would love a third interview.
Yes, thank you, Katy.
Thank you for joining us for another bite-sized nugget of Food Tech Talk, supply chain insights from farm to fork. Make sure to subscribe. And if you love the podcast, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. To learn more about Trustwell and request your free demo of our technology platform that connects food formulation, products, nutrition analysis, and compliant labeling with traceability, recall readiness, and supply chain transparency, please visit us at www.trustwell.com and click Get Started, or click the link in the show notes to learn more. Thanks for listening.